What's going on, guys? I'm Bill and welcome to Bill's How To. Today I'm going to show you guys a very common issue with brand new house builds, and that is to do with your tiling. At the moment I'm working on the alfresco at the back of my property because somebody hasn't tiled this properly. It's a very common issue. Today I'm going to show you guys how to avoid it, to make sure that if you're building a new house that you keep on top of it, make sure that they do it properly. If not, you're going to have to repair it, just as I'm about to show you guys how to do right now. Let's get straight into it, guys. Let's do this. Alright guys, so today I'm repairing a very common household issue on new builds in particular, and that is to do with the tiling. So if you guys have been following my channel for a while, you'll know that I've just moved into my new house. I paid somebody to do it simply because I don't have time to manage two projects, which is my business and also my house build at the same time. Paid somebody, and this is what we've got in return. So I'm going to show you guys a very common issue, and that is to do with your tiling. So at the moment we're outside on the alfresco, also known as a patio area. Also a common issue at the front of your house, on your steps or on the front porch. What we've got here is a big hollow section along the edge of our tiled area. So we've got a little return here, or a little face that runs along the edge. Our concrete slab ends around here somewhere, and then they've got a big gap over here that they usually pack out, and that's to make sure that everything's nice and square. That's not where the issue is. The issue is with this gap here. They don't actually fill it in a lot of the time. So we've got a big hollow section here. That means if you drop anything onto this tiled surface here, it's just going to simply break or crack, chip straight away. And I'll show you guys what I mean. So if you listen to the tile here, this is a section that is not hollow. That's nice and solid. As we move over to this edge, that's the issue that we're having. So this section here, pretty much all along the edge, is completely hollow, and this will continue to break all along the edge here over time. Now I'm not going to go through and replace every single one of them. Pretty much as they break, I'm going to have to replace them. But if it does start to happen pretty frequently, which I'm pretty sure is going to happen, I might actually throw this one here back on the builder and get him out to replace everything, because this is going to be a very common issue. I'll show you guys here on the other side. This is what it tends to look like a lot of the time. So something has obviously dropped here on the edge. That's a big hollow section right here. I can get my finger all the way inside there. So that's a big hollow section right here. If we listen once again, that's how it should sound compared to... That's not what you want to hear. So if you're building a new house, make sure you tell the tilers to fill all this in properly. Keep an eye on it if you can. Make sure you bring it up to the builder. If not, as soon as you move into the place, I really would recommend, before you pay that final figure, go through, do a little tap test and make sure that they're going to fix it. Otherwise you'll be stuck with a repair that I'm about to show you guys how to do. So anyway, I'm going to show you guys how to do this, guys. I've ripped up the other one already. That side one there just chipped a little bit, so I replaced two tiles, or removed two tiles. Over this section here, we're going to have to cut this tile, remove the old one, and replace it with a new one. So the first thing we need to do is remove the grout from around this damaged tile. That's going to create a little separation between the two tiles here, so that we're not going to damage the surrounding tiles, and it's going to make it easier to actually pop up this individual tile. To remove the grout, you've got a couple options. My preferred method is a multi-tool with a grout removal tool. It's basically got a little bit of grit here on the edge, and that's going to grind away that grout and remove it nice and easy. It's the safest way to do it. You can use an angle grinder with a diamond blade as well. Once again, very easy to do, but it's easy to also damage the surrounding tiles. The blade's a little bit thicker, so make sure you keep it as close as possible, or as hard up as you can, against the damaged tiles when you're cutting that grout out. Another option, if you don't have that, you can use a flathead screwdriver if you're lucky. Try and remove that grout. Or you can buy a grout removal tool from your local hardware store for probably about $3-4 and manually just grind that away. This one here is going to be my preferred method for today. So just keep your blade hard up against that damaged tile and just let the tool do its work. So once you've got all the grout removed, take a vacuum and just suck up that debris. So to remove the damaged tile, you've got a couple different options. I prefer to use an SDS rotary hammer drill with the chisel function on the end or a chisel attachment. We're going to break this up and remove it slowly. If you don't have one of these, that's fine. You can use a hammer, break it up, use a baluster or a chisel and just break that up slowly. Make sure you wear your glasses if you are doing that, because pieces will fly everywhere. Now in this case here, it's actually a pretty small piece. So what I'm going to do is, rather than trying to use the existing damage that we've got here to lift it up, I'm going to bring my chisel right here in the middle somewhere, try and break it up, put a little hole in there, and then I'm going to start just putting a bit of the chisel on a bit of an angle and try and get underneath those tiles. Once it's underneath, it'll start vibrating and eventually lift that tile up. So it might look like I'm getting nowhere at first, but once we've got a little hole here so I can get inside, that'll make things a lot easier. Lucky that little piece just came off. That's going to make my life a lot easier. So get the chisel straight underneath and slowly go through that until it starts separating and pop it up. You can see there it breaks right at the joint. That's part of the reason, remembering why we actually cut that one there, to separate the two. I'll go on a different angle now. That one there actually came up pretty easy. So I'm going to remove all these larger pieces. We'll take the vacuum and we'll clean all this extra mess here out. Alright, so this one here isn't actually too bad in terms of amount of adhesive that I have to remove. Usually you'll find there's all adhesive on the base here that you need to scrape off, or at the very least just get it down so it's nice and flush. On a larger area, I'll be using the SDS rotary hammer drill once again and just going over the top, skim it over the top, over these ridges, and that'll knock everything down. But for now, we're just going to scrape most of this adhesive down until it's fairly flat or level, so that I can put my new bedding over the top. Now for this excess grout that we've got here along the edge, I like to take a little 7-in-1, 50 million in one, whatever you want to call them, and just run it along the edge. You can see there we're breaking up all that grout nice and easy, and we're not going to damage the surrounding tiles. So I'm just going to quickly go around, remove all this excess grout, scrape this down so it's nice and flat, and I'll see you guys in a bit. Alright, now we're going to have to cut these tiles, so I'm going to take my new tile, lay that in place. Make sure that you've got a nice feel for it. Everything's down low enough so that you can apply some adhesive and the tile isn't going to be protruding too much. So that's pretty much the exact spot that we're going to have it in. I'm just going to take a pencil, mark off the edge right there, and I'll do this on both sides because I'm not too sure how square this one here is. So now when it comes to using a tile cutter, if you don't have one and you're looking to buy one, my recommendation would be to not buy the cheapest one out there, because unfortunately with tile cutters they're not all the same. If you buy a cheap one, you'll be breaking more tiles than you'll be actually cutting. So this one is looking pretty good right there, looking fairly square. So this one here isn't a very expensive one, but it's definitely not a cheap one. I think I paid maybe $300-400 for it, which is still reasonably priced for a tile cutter. Tile cutters can be in the thousands, but a cheap one could be about $80-90, and you'll be returning it the next day. That I can guarantee you. So we've got this one here pretty much centered where we're going to be cutting it. I'm going to run my score straight over the top right now. That's going to score the tile. We drop the pads over the top, and then that's going to break the tile. That's got a little snap there. That's how easy it is, guys. But if you buy a cheap one, I guarantee you, learn from my mistakes, it's not going to work. So now we can take the cut piece, dry fit it, make sure everything's going to line up, and we're happy with that finish right there. And that's looking pretty good. What I'm going to do now is get ready with my adhesive. So I'm going to start mixing my adhesive so I can tile this one and the other two in place. Alright, so we've got a dry mix of tile adhesive. Now with your tile adhesive, most of them are usually pretty good, but you just want to make sure that you've got one that's designed for external use if you are using it for exterior use. We're going to add a little bit of water as we go and just mix that one there through. Alright, so now we've got our tile adhesive ready to go. What we're going to do first and foremost is fill in this little area here. Nice and simple, just take a little bit of the adhesive and we're just going to push that into it just like that. Don't be too concerned if you happen to get glue in areas that you don't want glue. Just have a wet rag with you and you can wipe that off nice and easy. So we're going to push this all in. Make sure it's completely all the way down in there. Even under here, I'm going to push a little bit under there. So we try and avoid that one from breaking. Alright, that one there's all ready to go. Drop a little bit on top here. Take your trowel, work it all through. We're not going to have to butter the back of this because we've got a fair bit of glue on there anyway. It's going to definitely have plenty of contact. If anything, it's most likely going to ooze out right now, but I want to make sure that we've got full contact here. Drop that in place. Push it down, work it back and forward to make sure you've got contact. Then what you want to do is run your fingers along the edge and push it down right until it's level with the tile next to it. That one there's looking pretty good right here. That's perfect, perfect. Drop this one here down just a little bit more. That's looking perfect right there. Now with the wet rag, like I said, if you've got a bit of glue that's out here, wipe off any of that excess glue. You can even take the corner of it, fold it over and run it into that grout line. Just like that. Once you're happy with that, you can let it sit for a bit, come back and we'll be ready to re-grout it. In the meantime, I'm going to get those other two tiles out of the way. So now it's time for grouting. We've got our grout ready to go in the bucket. This is the grout that we're using here. Luckily, I've got the code for it. If you don't have the code, take a little sample of it into your local hardware store and try and color match it there. That's going to be your best bet to get as close as possible. We need to mix a little bit of water in this. So I'm going to show you guys the grout installation on these larger tiles. That way you'll get a bit more of an idea as to what we're doing. Just simply take the grout with the float like this, push it over the top, and you don't want to just swipe it over the top like that going with the joint. You want to go on a bit of an angle to it. That's going to ensure that you filled everything in nice and deep. Once you've filled that in, then you can wipe over the top just like that and it's ready to move on to the next section. Once you're happy with your grouting, remove any of that excess off the top just like that, put it back in your bucket in case you want to use it somewhere else. Now what we're going to do is just let this one here start to dry off for probably about 5-10 minutes. You'll notice the outer section here that's on the tiles will start to turn white and turn into a haze. Once that happens, get a rag or a wet rag or a wet sponge, go over the top, and all you're trying to do is just remove that grout from the tiles. Don't focus too much on the grout lines. Let it dry off again for another 5-10 minutes. The haze will form again. Clean it over the top once again and repeat that process until everything's completely clean. So when you see a haze around the surrounding tiles, you want to take a wet rag, or a sponge actually works better. You want to just start wiping away that excess grout from around the tiles. Now this one here is a little bit harder to wipe because it's a textured tile, therefore a sponge would be a lot better. Keep a bucket next to you, rinse out the rag, and once again just go over the top. All we're doing here is removing the grout from the surrounding areas, and we don't want to remove anything from the actual grout lines itself. And once everything's complete, guys, this here is the finished product. It's still drying off. I might have to clean it 1 or 2 more times just to get rid of that excess haze that's on the tiles. But this is a very, very common issue that you'll find on new builds. I get a lot of this work, unfortunately, and I should have been on top of it as well. But make sure your builder's on top of everything. Your tilers, you're watching what they do, that they fill in all those voids so you don't have to go out there and repair it just like I've shown you. Worst case scenario, if you do have a broken tile, and you haven't got on top of it beforehand, just like me, at least now you've got a step-by-step video on how to do it yourself. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed the video. You've learned something new. As always, guys, like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, I'm Bill. Thanks for watching Bill's How To.